Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My guest today, my guest today is usually the one reporting the other side of the story, but last week her story in part became the story. Let's just before I get on with it, let's just take a little look at what I mean.
Hello, Mr. Singh. Drea Humphrey with
Drea.
Rebel News. Your party takes great pride in standing against hate such as white supremacy, Islamophobia, and
Sorry, I didn't get your outlet.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News.
Okay.
Your party.
You know where I'm going to go with this, all right?
Can I speak?
Yeah, you can. I'm just going to say you know where I'm going to go with it, though.
Wow.
Your party takes pride in standing against hate such as white supremacy, Islamophobia, and online hate speech. Yet you stay silent about ongoing attacks against Christians. Will you condemn the rise in acts of hate against Christians today and explain what your party will do moving forward to keep Christians safe from hate in Canada?
Again, thank you, but I'm not going to respond to an organization that promotes misinformation and disinformation like Rebel News. So no, I'm not going to respond to your question.
Wow.
What she said.
That is just a small smidgen of what happened. That was the press conference, part of the press conference after the French debate, where very rarely do you see members of alternative media invited to press conferences anywhere. So alternative independent media were there. They were able to get their questions in, and this created a mini firestorm. These clips went viral. They were shared all over social media. Many were talking about this. A lot happened, including the cancellation of the press conference that was to follow after the English debate. So much happened. So here to share her story with me, I'm so excited to have Drea Humphrey from Rebel News. Drea, welcome.
Hi, Anita. It's good to see you again.
It's so nice to see you too. Okay, I played a little bit of that Jugmeat clip. Can I just ask you how that made you feel or what that experience was like when you were asking the question? What was going on? Were you surprised at his response?
Well, to answer that first, no, I was not surprised at his response. To secondly, follow up with your question about how does it make me feel? It makes me feel sad. That was Easter weekend. That was a very important question. Although the number keeps dwindling, there are 51% of Canadians, or 53, I believe it is, who identify as Christians. And of course, there's other people who want freedom of religion to be a thing here. They don't want terrorist attacks against churches happening. It was a very important, timely question, and leaders are ignoring this ongoing church burning spree. So even though I expected it, because that's how smug Singh is, he doesn't like answering any of our questions. He uses that as an excuse. It's still a shame. You would think that there was a line crossed and maybe he would go, you know what, this one's pretty important. I'm going to speak to this issue.
Yes, he could have said something. He could have said any of his thoughts on. He could have said, "I condemn these church burnings." I'm sad when He could have said something, but I was actually surprised to say, "Go, you guys report misinformation, and I don't answer questions." Had he ever said that to you before, and I just never saw that on camera?
Yes, he has said that before. So including when we've had to, sue our way into the debates previously, he takes that stance. He never gives a shred of evidence to what misinformation or disinformation he's talking about. Also, that is the same thing basically that Trudeau did the last time in the COVID election. At the stroke of midnight, the federal courts decided for the second time that the government doesn't decide who journalists are. And Trudeau took the exact same approach, basically. I will not call your group of people an organization. But what really stood out to me even more so, because we have that history with Jagmeet Singh, was the actual backlash that we were getting from the journalists in that moment. You hear a little laugh there when he rudely interrupts me twice. You can hear a journalist laughing, but you could not hear what was happening as a whole. There were journalists actually heckling me as I was asking my question professionally. They were swearing, shut the F up, get out of here. That was definitely surprising.
I had heard that. I'd heard those rumors that they were saying that. And I can only imagine all legacy media was in the room. Am I correct? And like the three major ones were in the room? CBC, CTV Global?
Yeah, that's right. People don't like to point out that CBC got just as many questions as Rebel News. There was a really nice journalist with CBC, about two people ahead of me, who lined up, just like we did. We walked into the line instead of grabbing the free snacks in the back and chatting. We were just on the ball, and she was super nice. She was super kind.
Yeah.
And but there was, of course, some that just hated the fact that we were there, and the top head honchos of CBC were definitely among them.
Yeah, because CBC produced the debate. The CBC producers are in charge, and they are working with the debate commissioner. And if they say kibosh the press conference after the English debate, that's it. It's done. And what a shame, because that is a kind of a tradition. You know what? I think, after all these years and myself working for mainstream news, I feel sometimes like a bit of a Pollyanna still, where I still hold some hope that someone will do the right thing.
Yeah.
But I was actually in shock a bit. I don't know why, I still am, when Michel Cormier, the debate commissioner, was on a CBC radio program, and he was saying, well, we didn't want Rebel News in there. They so, yeah, we have to come in. Like, how dare he say that?
Michel Cormier, the General Director of the Leaders Debates Commission. Mr. Cormier, hello. So how come there were 5 journalists there? I'm using quotation marks, who represented this media last night.
But because we lost 2 cases in court in 2019 and 2021, because it's important to know that we had tried to prevent Rebel News from participating in these press conferences. Because I agree with Chantal that they are not journalists, as we understand it.
You know what he should have said is, they are a media organization. We welcome all freedom of the press. And can you talk to me a little bit about the authorities, CBC, the debate commission, speaking about Rebel News in that way?
Well, I want to put it into perspective, because like you, we were watching this unfold as we were physically present there. I mean, we've seen the coverage of COVID. We've seen the coverage of the trucker convoys. We know that the mainstream media is full of crap, but it was something else to see it unfold in real time about us, when they wouldn't even, cross the floor to ask us what's really going on. So I want to put into perspective that I saw the interview while I'm sitting there at the event that they're all talking about. We're all together. And it was so bizarre to see the commissioner say that and just sort of weasel, oh, we couldn't do anything about it. You're right. He should have just said, number one, this is the law. Like, this is the law. They're supposed to be here just like anyone else. And number two, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do. I don't even know why he was doing these interviews. It made him look so bad. And the CBC likes to say we're activists, but that was clearly what they were doing. They were lobbying him. They were riling up people. They were riling up other journalists to think that somehow we had done something wrong to be there, when it's the other way around. It's the commission that has been wrong all these years, and the courts have decided that. So
you guys had to fight and sue to be there. Not a luxury, but a right that you guys should have, that mainstream media takes for granted. And I've seen the clips of Rosemary Barton completely criticizing you, the way she describes you. She's just got a huge bee in her bonnet. She has a complete disdain for any alternative media organization, when we all know, and I know, they were the purveyors of misinformation. But a lot of other things happened. I did a video about this, where the police were standing outside the Liberal bus. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Oh my gosh.
What
And
was that
this
about?
is all, I did, I couldn't sleep that night. We were all stunned. The rebels have been through so much. We've always got our back against the wall just to do things like ask questions. This is a prime example of that. But we were all shocked. It was so bizarre. And again, there was maybe between 100 and 150, I don't know, maybe 200 journalists and camera people together in the same area. We all saw what happened. We all saw who really started the incident. We all saw that the rebels were trying to diffuse the incident. Of course, none of them filmed it and put it up. Only we filmed it and put it up. And we're again seeing this claim come out while we're there, that Rosie Barton and David Cochran need security, and they're saying that they're pointing to the police that are chatting with each other over there. And to put that in perspective, that was after the scrum was canceled. And that was while everybody is leaving through one door only. So that's really why the cops were there. We actually went up to them and we said, why are you guys here protecting them from us? And they said, we don't know what you're talking about. That's not why we're here. We're here because of the exit. And we're like, we point to the CBC and we're like, they're on there saying that. But it was just so bizarre. I think eventually one of them from the CBC requested to have some sort of escort, because at the end of the night when we were doing our recap video, we were the last ones there. That's how you know we did nothing wrong. Like, why would we shut down the place if we had done something wrong? So we were wrapping up, or just trying to explain the bizarre situation we had been in. And we started to see that because it was a CBC building. Like, we were actually in their lair. This is why they were so pissed off. Like, who let the rebels in here? And so their staff, like the workers, one by one, are starting to get escorted out by the police at that point. So this is like maybe a couple hours after Rosie had said that, to their Ubers. And I broke the report we're doing. I just said to this one man, a man is getting a police escort to get to his Uber. And I said, what are you scared of? We just asked questions. That's all we did. And, he had that look of embarrassment. Like, he looked like he was really ashamed when I said that. I don't know if he wanted the escort or if somebody said, you guys have to get an escort, but he looked like he was very embarrassed to be getting escorted out. But the whole thing, there was just so much. It's like you said, so much happened so fast. And we were accused of misinformation, but it was the media regime, the state choice journalists, that had zero journalistic integrity. I remember there was one journalist who captured that interaction as close as I was right there and he was right there, and he said he was doing a story. And I said, you saw everything. I said, are you going to be true in your story? Are you going to are you going to say what you actually saw? And he goes, I'll do my best to be truthful.
Oh,
and I just thought, what the heck what are these people? They don't seem to be journalists, yet we're the ones being smeared as not journalists. And we don't break the rule of not reaching out to the other side. And again, Rosie defaming me, accusing me of being a liar. I even went up to her the next day, politely offered my hand to shake to let her know she was false about what she said about me, and to ask, where are the bodies? Where are the remains? If I get it wrong, let me know one site. And of course, she wouldn't answer that.
They don't even understand good television. Good television is to bring you guys on and say, hey, we've got Ezra on set here and we've got Drea. Hey, let me ask you this, and maybe do a segment, do a 3-minute segment. That's what reporting is. But if you shoo it down and go, and they look like babies. And also CTV reported so badly on what happened with Mark Carney's press secretary, whose name is escaping me, who knocked down David Menzies' phone.
Yeah, Terry
Gillan, Terry Gillan. Yeah,
that sounds about right.
That was horrible. That was another thing. And the other thing was this guy from the Hill Times causing a huge kind of kerfuffle while you guys were watching the debate, right? And Stuart Benson. And if that's your security concern, you're like, I mean, he's the guy causing trouble and he's on their side, but they had an army of officers. Who's causing trouble? Nobody is going fist to cuffs there. There's no like violence happening. So for all these police officers, it was ridiculous. And if they needed protection, they certainly had a lot. But on another note, do you think that Hill Times reporter Stuart Benson, was that a natural response, or do you think he was acting?
Well, I want to make sure the guys filming it over there gets a good audio.
Good.
Can you hear me okay? Am I enunciating properly?
That's sarcastic.
You have one set up? You got the levels ready for me? Because you're clearly not doing any actual journalism while you're here.
What are you doing? Googling?
Respectful discourse. It's right here in black and white.
Why? When you guys started gaming the rules and threatening to sue because you didn't get your way?
So I don't think Stu Benson was set up. I think they hated us from the beginning. Like I said, they heckled my question. They heckled Alexa too, who was before me. That means they started heckling us at our very first question before they even knew we were going to get 4 questions. So they already had a hate on for the rebel, and they were just waiting for an excuse. And I believe that the misinformation propaganda blitz that came out from CBC fueled that. And when CBC interviewed that, they were rude to us the whole time, but when CBC interviewed the commissioner, that is when they, showed their fangs. And it was when we were completely dehumanized. And it didn't matter what any journalist said to us or how they spoke to us. No one was going to stand up for us but the other independents. And so I think that he was just unhinged. Maybe he was one of the people heckling us the night before in the dark. I don't know. And so he was just waiting for an excuse. And when they incorrectly reported, they got the facts all wrong about the truck that we own. Stuart Benson really ran with that. He didn't understand what he was looking up, the third party. None of this was secret. That's the funny thing. Like, they act like we've hid these lawsuits and we've hid the fact that we have a truck. I mean, we proudly talk about these things. So he really just lost it and he was uncontrollable. And it went on for what I think is between 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And what I do find suspicious, though, not so much his tantrum meltdown, and there was another journalist who did the same. I do find a little suspicious the timing for which the commission chose to come during that nobody can focus on their work. He should have been totally shut down, Stuart Benson. And they come and they walk up to Ezra and they whisper in his ear, and Ezra gets up and he walks out. And granted, I was on the other side of the room, and even to me, in everybody's defense, it appeared as though he was getting penalized for that interaction. So Ezra started walking out with commission. We have video of this. And so I even said to Stu Benson, like, that should be you, because that's kind of what I thought at the moment. So you had and by the way, I should also add, there was this strict no recording rule, which went out of the window. Everybody ended up recording, but you had the state journalists only recording us. If you see these interactions, they're staring at us. It's like they're waiting for us to snap. When meanwhile, there's a journalist actually snapping, who, by the way, was defending the use of gay slurs. Like, that's the story, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, Ezra gets up and all these journalists are tripping over themselves, breaking this no recording rule and rushing to the door because of that bizarre timing of the commission walking in. And they all got that shot. They all got that shot of Ezra walking with the commission outside of the door, and they run to the door and they're waiting. And so I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I call my producer from the inside and I'm like, is Ezra getting arrested? What's happening? Because this is our fear all the time. Who's getting arrested? And my producer's like, no, I just spoke with him. I think he's just talking about something else or whatever. So I was calm. And, to the journalist's credit in the room, they were waiting to see what happened. And when Ezra walks out the door, which we also captured, they scrummed him, they bombarded him, and they were all confused. They were saying, what happened? And he's like, Ezra thinks it's so funny because he didn't even know they ran after him. And he's like, I was just talking to them. So what he was talking about was that CBC had complained about them, about us, me and him separately coming up to them and telling them that they got their facts wrong. So they had put in a complaint. And Ezra said, it was like 30 seconds long and we were professional. That's what they chose during that interaction to do instead of shutting down Stu. I find that ironic.
They didn't even speak about Stu.
Right. And then they let Ezra go. And the CBC had reported in that very moment, without waiting for the facts like the other journalists, reported that Ezra has been removed after an altercation involving him, and that they have been told that his credentials are being taken away. So there was this campaign the whole time to shut us down. And the commission knew we did nothing wrong. We literally had done nothing wrong. So they shut everything down. That's as simple as it is.
Thank you for that explanation. It's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. If cameras are pointed at you, if they're targeting you, they are waiting, chomping at the bit. And you guys know how to act. You guys know that they're watching, and they still do whatever they can to create this flurry to blame you guys. And this that Stu Hill guy. The other thing is, I question whether we need debate commissions after all. I hope if we get a new government that this will not happen in the future. I question whether we need a government organization, a debate commission. I'm very disappointed in
Well,
that.
I mean, I don't think it should be a government. It should be more impartial. But I mean, as you know, everything gets compromised. Like,
Yeah.
it's so easy with pressure and cancel culture and people too scared to just say the truth that, I mean, how else? Like, yes, I don't think the commission is going to stand after this. They've got pressure from all sides. Nobody's happy with them about this. No one's happy the rebels went in. Nobody's happy the rebels were smeared and defamed. But who's to say the next group that manages the debate will do any better?
And I agree. The legacy media is even more ticked off because they didn't get their story. They didn't get their questions. They didn't get the press conference. They
Yeah.
didn't get their material. Too bad. You can blame the commission and you can blame the CBC for
Right.
that.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to just quickly bring up is your question that you asked about the residential school. There are certain things that almost nobody can ask questions about, in society today. And those are the very things that should be questioned. You can't ask a question about a vaccine. God forbid you ask the question. I imagine you receive a lot of backlash because the emotion, people are very emotional
Yeah.
when you say anything about the residential school. Have you've heard this, right? What do you, but the question needs to be asked.
Well, I'll tell you this. When I first started reporting, when the 215 claim came out, I believed it like anyone else. I was horrified like anyone else. I drove, with my former camera person. We went down to the residential school and were prepared to just do a normal report. And things very quickly didn't make sense. They started not adding up. I didn't know what GPR was until that story. So I educated myself about GPR. And the more I did that, the more I went, wait, how did they find 215 bodies as young as 3 years old? So precise with GPR. And that was the biggest red flag as I'm there on the residential school grounds and I'm seeing the sorrow and the heartbreak and people coming from all over the country and bus loads to grieve. And I'm going, man, I'm going to look like a psychopath doing this report because I don't get it. Then I'm asking the RCMP because I couldn't get a hold of the band and sure enough the whole world's reaching out to them. So I didn't think anything about that at the time. But the RCMP is saying, well, we haven't investigated. We're waiting for the band. And then the BC coroners hadn't investigated and no one's put a shovel in the ground. So I'm sitting there again, the non-journalist, right? I'm the non-journalist in the room, right? And I'm going, how did they get the 215? I'm looking at the ground. They never dug anything. So then I start asking, what they refer to as residential school survivors. And these were people who had gone to the school. And they told me they had gone between 10, some said 14 years, some said this is where I met my wife. I mean, they had a history at the school. Every single one of them that I asked had no clue about hundreds of missing children until they were told by that press release in their own community at the school they went to. And there were some, I always asked the question, did you see anybody die? Were you aware of anybody who died or went missing? And they had stories, heartbreaking stories if you're a kid at a school there, but they were accidents and they testified to witnessing the accidents. So I wasn't finding what I thought I was coming to cover. And instead of putting the report out immediately, as was planned, I had to go home and be like, oh my gosh, how do I get this report out? How do I cast doubt on something that every politician has said to be true, something that every news outlet has said to be true, something the band is claiming they found? And what if I'm missing something? What if I'm wrong? Right? So it took about 2 weeks to get my very first report out. And I was so afraid that I don't know what I was afraid of, but I did it anyways. And nothing, like nothing. My goal, as it always is to follow the facts where they lead me and be very
Yeah.
clear about how I get those facts, so that basically it's very difficult to come after me. And then a year later, I never stopped the beat. And a year later, it became very clear to me that this something is not right here. I don't know who's being nefarious, but something is not right. And that's when I did the documentary. My cameraman and myself, we went back out and we did a little investigative documentary that really debunked that whole claim. We ended up catching up with the chief, and this is journalism. That's what we
Yeah.
did. And again, I thought perhaps I'd get a backlash, and I never did. I got ignored instead. Now, Rosie Barton messed up because she singled me out and she accused me of not knowing facts, when in reality, she either is lying or doesn't know the facts herself. And so that has really fired on her, because now way more people are aware that the bands that have excavated found no unmarked graves.
I remember people overhearing this year, like maybe about a year or two before I got fired. I heard two very big reporters in the global newsroom talking about this story, and they were talking about the scanning thing and thinking, and they didn't have any skepticism that, there were bodies there. I totally remember hearing that. But when a real journalist, as you uncover the story, you go, hang on, the coroner's not making a report. I'm talking to witnesses and I'm hearing this. So the story is going to change, but that's what journalism is. You don't pre-write the headline before you cover the story. That's what people did for many years at Global, was true journalism. And then somewhere in there, the curiosity went and all this other stuff went, because I think there's a political thing about, you better not say anything about the natives. You better, I mean, something else is going on there.
Well, that narrative is definitely breaking down. Something I say in my reports often is that a banned government is politicians. They're not special. They're just politicians.
Yeah.
And so as soon as we give this sort of mystical, godlike power to chief and council, we are not properly vetting where our money is going, how it's being spent, and whether or not that's helping the people very much in need in their own communities. Finally, it's gotten to the point, much like with, the COVID vaccine, you're a conspiracy theorist. It's dying down now. People are going, no, this is ridiculous, to the point that professors in UBC have gone to the Supreme Court to ask that they no longer be compelled to do land acknowledgement. I mean, something like that would never have happened if it wasn't for this issue, I believe, being exposed and being more prevalent in the media, whether the state broadcasters appreciate that or not.
Okay, let's wrap it up with one sentence. Election predictions. What do you hope to see on the 28th?
Oh, good God, girl. I am biting my nails. I feel very much like it was with the BC election. It was the same thing. It was a toss-up. I feel it's the same thing. Perhaps a conservative minority, if I had to throw out a prediction, but I hope to God the Liberal and NDP coalition becomes a thing of the past.
Me too. Well said. Drea Humphrey, thank you so much for your time today. I know you got to run. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for all that.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. You too.